Greetings to Baba and Nyame. I'm your guide and host, Gracie Kunadu. On this episode, our focus will be on perspective. Now, as a scholar or historian who focuses on offering a perspective about the human past, I want to focus on a sense of the world that is rooted in perspectives. And so, for my intellectual work, and like many others like me who do this kind of work, our job is to assemble a body of evidence, a diverse body of evidence that we can gather, that we can digest after vacuuming it up and make sense of it, and then offer a narrative or story that is both nuanced and plausible, but also reasonable, so that reasonable people like you and I can agree or disagree with the perspective that's offered. And since none of us were there during the course of the human actions that transpired before us, then all we can offer is a plausible perspective about what we think happened one way rather than another. And so that, in a nutshell, is what the historian does. Now, what does historian have to do with this notion, broader notion of perspective? I want to opt for the word or term world sense offered by my friend and colleague Oyewumi Oyeronke, who argues, I think quite cogently, that worldview privileges the optic or the sense of looking or viewing, whereas we human beings have other senses: touch, feel, smell, hearing, and so on. And so world sense is really a sense of the world using all the human and non-human senses available to us to apprehend or to grasp or to basically understand this varied and dynamic, world and cosmos in which we inhabit. And so often when we think about spirituality and therefore spirit, which is the root word of spirituality, we think often of something that is ghostly, something that is unreal, something that is either part of the imagination or cannot be grasped. And I want to make it down to earth for us so that we can understand the perspective that I'm going to share with you. And so let's start with a few examples. One example of this reality and very concrete reality of spirit and therefore spirituality is energy, because spirits are simply just another term for energy or energies. Energy, of course, is the polar end of matter, matter being, of course, physical things that we can touch and feel and hold, whereas energy, we can touch it, but we can't really hold it, whether it's electricity or it's wind or it's water. Yes, we can touch it, we can see it, but we can't really hold it. And so energy works this way with our human bodies, right? If you think about a pregnant woman that is expecting, at some point she will go to one or several doctor's visits for a sonogram. And sonar, which is the root word of sonogram, is, of course, energy. It's a really waves of energy waves that actually bounces off of the fetus or the growing child within her womb and returns an image, a moving image in some cases, of the unborn child. In fact, in all cases, it should be the case. Sometimes the child may be sleeping, so it may not move, but in often most cases, you'll get a moving image of the child or some part of the child, depending upon the stage of the pregnancy. But that key here is not the pregnancy. The key point here is the ultrasound, that is the sonar, that is the energy wave that penetrates the human flesh, penetrates the body, and essentially is able to return something based upon that penetration. And so that's an example of spirit working, meaning the energy that is a sound wave penetrating the body, not causing any pain, but entering the body, and of course, providing a picture inside the body, and of course, returning it to us, right? If we think about the sonar, and sonar gives us one example. Another example of how energy penetrates the body, and then we'll get to this notion of spirit and therefore spirituality, is the idea of spirit, that is energy, entering our bodies and actually orchestrating the human body, using the human body as an instrument or as a tool. And sometimes in case of negative or harmful spirits, causing trouble without the person actually remembering what happened, okay? And so here's another example that we can work with. Have we ever been shocked by electricity before, whether it's putting our finger into a socket or other forms of a shock such as electricity. Often we'll feel a jolt, and that jolt will make our body jump. That is, the energy has not entered an already existing energy within our bodies. And of course, the one in our bodies is sort of at its maximum capacity that energy can control. Much like a circuit box that has all these amps, there's a capacity of ampage that the current system can accommodate. Anything over that, either the fuse will blow or the circuit box will break down and malfunction. And so the human body is like that circuit box that can accommodate a certain capacity of energy. Anything beyond that, it will throw it into a fit. The same is true for the energies, right? And so depending upon the kind of energies that enter the human body. And so when that electricity, whether by accident or on purpose, enters our bodies, it gives us a shock because the voltage is too much for the system. But I don't want to focus on the voltage. I want to focus on just the fact of the electricity entering our body. That is, the energy enters our body and there's a response, right? There's an output. Just like the sonogram gives us an output, that is the imagery output. The same way that the electricity gives us an input, that is the actual energy going to our bodies, and an output, that is a response, a reaction, a shock, literally. The same is true for spirit. You see, when spirit enters the body, and you might think about so-called spirit possession, which I want to put to the side because it's not really what's happening, is that when a spirit enters the body, the same way as the sonogram or the energy wave, is that spirit can enter our bodies. Now, what I want to make you aware of, that this spiritual world is not a distinct world, is not a universe far away. It is less a place and more space. And so right now, I'm inhabiting the spiritual world. It's just that we just can't see it. Why? Because we're not solely or purely spirit. We're not solely or purely energy, like this sonogram, like electricity, right? We're not solely or purely those things. And because we're not, our human bodies actually limit our capacity to see, to hear, and to sense this energy all around us. And that's why I gave you the example of both electricity as well as the sonar energy wave. And so this world is all around us. In other words, this space called spiritual world is not some far off galaxy. It is right here, right in front of you, right around you. In other words, there are billions of microbes, there are billions of microorganisms floating around you that you pass through every day, past this moment. You walk by, you walk through, you walk around, and the only fact is that you just can't recognize them. But they're all around us, right? And they can take the form of pathogens within the atmosphere. They can take the form of pollutants in the atmosphere. Whatever form they take, they are these microscopic energy forms, right? That we pass through, live with every single moment of our human lives. And so the perspective I want to offer you is that this spiritual world is not some far off distant galaxy or cosmos. It's not something, in some sci-fi movie. It is right next to you, right in front of you, right behind you, and it is always with you. The key difference is that, and here's a perspective, is that we don't have the non-human tools, many of us anyway, to apprehend or grasp or engage with this. However, there's another side of the story, and this may seem contradictory, but I'll make it make sense in a moment, is that indeed we do have those tools, right? It is just that we are not been, for the most part, either enabled or socialized to apprehend this world as it exists, right? Often we think about spirituality, spirit, we think of some spookism or some something we see in some sci-fi movie or some scary movie, whether it's The Exorcist or some other demonic movie, and think of spirit as some grossly monstrous and hideous and often net negative experience. But in fact, it's not, right? Think about the sonar. There is no pain caused by the wave going through your body, at least at those dosages. The same is true for any light form of electricity, not any heavy current, right? Short currents, right? Often sometimes you can actually feel currents running through your body. That is, it will tingle, and that tingling sensation is a form of current, right? And so at certain levels of dosage, we actually accommodate these energies in our bodies all the time, right? And so that world sense, right, is what I want to bring to you in the fore. Now, here are some of the dimensions of that world sense that I want to share with you in this broader perspective. It is that because we inhabit and live around us this spirit-induced and energy-filled reality worlds, it means that the spiritual world essentially comes alive in full force when our world, the world of light, essentially evaporates, or better said, when the sun goes down, particularly around 12 midnight. 12 midnight after that, that is the time that the spirits, they come out in full force. They are more visible in the dark, if that makes sense. They are the unseen that's seen in those times. Now, they can be seen throughout the day, depending upon our ability to see, and that varies depending upon who you are and your socialization. But for the most part, socialized or not, you can see, apprehend, feel, and sense these spiritual forces and figures after 12 midnight. And particularly when you sleep, we are most therefore vulnerable, because spiritual forces that are harmful, that are negative, they can enter our bodies and actually orchestrate us to do a range of things for which afterwards we'll have no memory of. Now, I'm not suggesting that you can use this as an excuse to account for your whereabouts because you were cheating, or your whereabouts because you robbed a bank, or your whereabouts because you were doing drugs, and say, hey, a negative spirit came in my body, I'm not responsible. That's not what I'm suggesting, and so please don't take me the wrong way. What I'm saying is that if you have a pattern behavior, for example, you do this and this pretty much every day, and you do something out of that pattern, out of routine, and the people around you notice this and say, hey, what's going on? You should at least consider the idea or the possibility that some spirits or spiritual forces have entered your body, particularly after 12 midnight, and especially once you go to sleep. Because once you go to sleep, your body is an open book. It is an open door, an open window, and therefore it is available for spirits to enter, both positive ones and negative ones, right? And if you are not a spiritualist, you will not be able to tell the difference, or not be able to fight back, or essentially disinvite those spiritual forces or energies from entering your body and doing whatever they do. And of course, in most cases, actually almost all the cases, you will have no memory of it, right? Now, there's varieties of energies, right? The variety of spiritual forces that will have different effects on your body, particularly when you are sleeping. And that could be during the day in a nap, or it could be at night. But especially at 12 midnight, that's when these forces come out in full force. That is when they become the seen unseen. And so there are different kinds of spirits or energies that will have different effect on the body. So for instance, there are condemned spirits, that is people who have, or spirits that have had a human experience that they lived a life that was unworthy of their destiny or purpose, that they reneged on their destiny and purpose, and or lived a life that was unable to answer a central question, which is, what did you learn during your human experience? Not what you gathered, not what you obtained, not what you were able to buy and consume, but what did you learn? And these them spirits, based upon their conduct, that is their behavior over the span of their human life, will not go to the village, as we say. They will not go home, that is to the spiritual realm, which is more space. So that is, not be able to unlock the passage or portal to this world all around us. They will in fact stay close to this earth. They'll be stuck to this earth, and they will not be able to go, and they'll be tormented by the cumulative or the overall package or baggage for the life in which they live. That will be their torment. And I want to share this because some of us have these ideas about heaven and hell and sin and the like. If you put them to the side, those ideas may be useful. But what I want to suggest is that there isn't a place, for which one is tortured and tormented by some character in a, red outfit, way under the earth in a pit of fire. The torture is actually the conduct, that is the behavior, the actions of the person over the course of their lives. They will be on a loop, and they will basically live that loop in perpetuity, right? And this is the feature of being a condemned soul. This is the feature of being a soul that cannot return home, that is, cannot go through the portal and enter the fully spiritual world, go to the village, and be amongst those that can, in fact, help us, support us, guide us in this human experience that we have. And so condemned spirits are one major category of spiritual forces or energies that do enter the body, that can enter the body, that can cause havoc, that can cause trouble, especially when we are sleeping, especially when those of us that cannot or do not have the capacity to either fight back or disinvite or essentially say, look, you better stay in your place and do not come over here. And that usually includes most of us who do not have the spiritual abilities or capacities to do so. And so the question becomes, okay, well, what do I do, right? Well, what you do then is first have a grasp of this perspective that I'm sharing with you about how close and proximate the spiritual world and universe and reality is to us. Secondly, it is to make sure that you have close to you contact reputable spiritualists that can help you to maneuver and navigate this world. The same reason why we have doctors in the world, why we have nurses in the world, why we have teachers in the world, why we have other kinds of individual lawyers in the world, because we need to have these individuals who specialize in these facets of human experience to help support us, because we can't all be lawyers, we can't all be doctors, and likewise, we can't all be spiritualists. And so make sure you have contact with reputable spiritualists within your community, within your midst, that can help you along the way, that can guide you and provide you with some of the tools you need to keep you safe, especially when you're most vulnerable, as when we're sleeping. Because when we're sleeping, the other world around us comes alive and in full force. And that other world, indeed, is much more greater in expanse and comprehensiveness than this physical human world you see around me. So you see the trees, you see the sky. That, if you think that's magnificent, and it is, the other world is even grander and greater, right? One other thing I want to share with you before I conclude this episode, Powered by Nyame, is that I want to really emphasize perspective, because a major hindrance or wall to grasping and therefore getting the most out of our human experience is the notion of spirituality, and the spiritual world. And that's really about a perspective, because many of us have been groomed or trained or socialized to think and believe a range of dogmas about spirituality and spirit, and about the spiritual world, as if it's some, again, distant, far-off galaxy that is far away from us, as if it is some devilish or demonic experience, and as if we're dealing with something that is not human. That is, the human experience is wrapped up in the cloth of the spiritual world and experience, right? It is with us, around us, all of us. And indeed, because we tend to pay less attention to that world, that reality, and the cast members thereof, we pay more attention to the things, right? Clothes, jewelry, cars, houses, bank account, what this person has, what it doesn't have. And all things do not matter, because when it's time for you to go home, when it's time to enter that portal or try to enter that portal to go home to the village, you will not be able to. Because what will happen is that when it comes to that central question about what did you learn, and you won't be able to lie, because it won't be your physical conscious mind that will enter that portal and go to the gate of the portal. It'll be your spirit, the real you. And so that real you won't be able to make something up. They will ask you, what did you learn? And if your response is, well, I learned to make lots of money, or I learned to gather up houses, or I learned to take the most I could out of that company or out of that person, or I learned to be an athlete and make as much money as I could and live it up and get as much women and girls and cars and things of that sort, you will not go through the portal. That is, your spirit will not go through the portal. And you may become one of those condemned spirit that is set to roam this earthly plane and unable to pass the portal into this broader and into this, from all accounts, this amazing reality of purely being spirit and being amongst those who came before us long ago, and among the ancients and bigger heads and all of the creative force and agents thereof that exist in and of this world, universe, cosmos, etc. Right? So there's a lot at stake here about being human. All the things we think that are important are really not important at all, because none of them we can take with us. We can't take the car with us, the house with us. We cannot take the bank account with us. We cannot take any of the things, our status with us. Only thing we will take is immaterial things, right? Did we find love? Did we accomplish our destiny, mission, and purpose in this human experience granted to us? And the essential question that will be asked to us will be asked of our spirit, and will be unable to lie or fabricate. All right? It won't be our conscious mind. It won't be a script that we have put in our heads. It will be based upon the record that is etched in our spirit that we have lived over the course of a lifetime. And the consequence of that, not being able to go home to the village, means that we'll live a tormented existence. If you think about it, that's hell. Not a place, but the loop of tormented experiences that we lived over lifetime, truncated and replayed every moment of the afterlife. Baba and Nyame, I've been your guide and host. Hope to see another episode. Take care. Stay well.